Well, welcome, Sébastien. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Chris.
Sébastien Verger, Dell France CTO. Thank you for being here. Let's kind of just jump right in because as Carlos mentioned, we just have 20 minutes. There's a wealth of things we could talk about, obviously, when it comes to Dell and its history and all that, but we're here to talk about AI. So let's start, I guess, with the general strategy. What is Dell's long-term vision for AI and how it will be integrated into industries?
Yeah. So hi everyone. So definitely, AI is one of the three major pillars of Dell's technology strategy, and so we have introduced 2 years ago what we call the Dell AI Factory, which is a strategic vision, and the objective is to work on 5 different subjects with our customers. So first of all is of course the data management. So any works that can be done and that must be done on the data. We all know the GIGO. Okay, so garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have the right data, that may be a big problem for your AI to give you good insights. So many customers, and depending on which industry you are, you may need to have assistance in terms of service management. To help you manage your data. Second element is service. I've just talked about that in the early actions on the data, but it's still valid for any of the subjects. So of course the infrastructure. When you say that, anybody thinks infrastructure. So infrastructure is key for us. And so we rely on our fantastic logistics and fantastic partnerships. So we are able to deliver those infrastructure, and no matter the size you need, should you need very small ones or just workstations for starting your projects, or if you are I don't know OpenAI or XAI for Grok typically. So XAI last year placed an order of $4.2 billion, a single order, to run Grok. So pretty cool, I have to say, but pretty intensive because we had to deliver this in 2 months. So 2 months after the order, it was up and running. So you can find it was just a year ago. So you can find some communications from typically Jensen Huang, from NVIDIA, who was amazed by our capability to not only deliver but put in place and start right on time. So that was fantastic. So I just mentioned a few partners. So of course ecosystem is key. And so that's the fourth pillar, and the last one is the use case. So we have identified common use case that we find in many places. So it's pretty interesting for us to help you to accelerate in those kind of projects. So we do define white papers and white books to help you to not only accelerate but also de-risk your own project.
You mentioned in that opening bit infrastructure, which to me is we could talk for 2 hours about just that piece of it, but more so for me as a journalist, the last 30 years, it feels like at this moment, the details of the infrastructure and the constraints imposed by the infrastructure are much more top of mind for companies. They're much more aware of the data center questions, resources, allocation, physical locations. I know for Dell, one of the things you're working on or evolving toward is a focus on edge computing, which has been around but now seems to be accelerating. So tell me a little bit how you define that and why that's important now for Dell's strategy and AI.
Yeah, so I like to explain to the customers that most of the time your AI projects will not be, let's say, a natural growth of your existing data center and your existing infrastructure. This is something that you will build close to your data center or maybe elsewhere. Sometimes it makes sense to build it elsewhere. So this is why it's so challenging, because the demands for typically the power. So would that be to drive the servers or storage or for cooling? Are just crazy, and they are going more and more challenging. So this is why new technologies like water cooling are key for that. And we all know that all your data centers may not be ready yet, or even be able to be ready. So most of the time, we see new projects for new data centers. So to come on your questions regarding the edge. So edge was, let's say, some kind of blurring for years. And I like to explain that the principle of edge is to be able to not only create the data out of the data centers, but being able to exploit them and to exploit them locally and in real time. So when you say locally in real time, so that means it's not a human behind that. It's a machine. So this is where AI is key, to have the machine being able to run that. So I'm full with you when you say that it will ramp up very rapidly. So 4 years we are providing materials for those edge environments. So would that be hardened servers, switch, or even workstations, because it makes sense. And more, we will see not only the data centers, the cloud, the edge, but we also see that now the AI projects are going down to your workstation or your PC. So we see more and more AI PCs. So that makes a lot of sense. And here again, our objective is to help you to accelerate and to de-risk those projects. So this is why we have announced the Dell Pro AI Studio, which will allow you to download and install and start some LLMs and AI projects directly on your AI PC or workstations, if it makes sense for you.
So one of the things that strikes me about several of the things you just said is that if I'm an enterprise leader, it's both exciting time, but also the playbooks I've been using for new technology, new platforms, suddenly feel like they're a bit obsolete in thinking about what mix of infrastructure, LLMs, how do I think about all this stuff. So when you're out there talking to enterprise leaders, what seems to be the biggest barrier, the biggest blocker for them right now in terms of really deploying and getting ROI out of AI projects?
Yeah, and I had multiple discussions with people there the last 2 days, and we all see more or less the same. So at time we speak, most of the projects are in proof of concept area. And the real challenge is to go out of the proof of concept to go into production and how to ramp up. I have to say most of those proof of concepts are running on the cloud area. So the smallest ones are running on private environments. So would that be on workstations or small servers or small equipments that have been buy just for this? And the challenge is, I would say, double. So you need to go from a proof of concept, so small amount of data, nothing connected to it, to a larger space, integrated into your daily operations, connected with your other applications. And at that point in time, so you put, I would say, real data from your company. And most of the time, this is where security and compliance are, let's say, making that difficult to go into the cloud. So that makes a lot of sense to run that, on-prem, and so that's what drives us back to, what I said about the service offering that either Dell or our partners can run to definitely help our customers. So don't make me wrong. I'm not saying that it's bad to go into the cloud or it's a bad idea. It's just the real challenging of what you want to do and have, let's say, the move to production and a larger scale in mind from the beginning of your projects. And it's not just starting your proof of concept and let's say wait for the future to see if it works or not. So what we see that 80% of the proof of concept ends on nothing yet, and so most of the time it's not because they are not valuable from a business perspective. It's just because it's so difficult to imagine how can I ramp up in the next phase.
And again, is that because of fear about those security, compliance, safety issues? Is it sort of human nature in a sense that I'm afraid, what if I get this wrong, or what if I bet the business, or I can't execute this because it's so different at this scale, or is it a combination of those things?
Yeah, so in fact, we all know how it works. I mean, the business is building the proof of concept with, any partners or any companies that tell fantastic stories, and anybody is doing a great job to sell their stuff. So that's pretty cool. So, but once the proof of concept is done, and it's the concept has been proved, okay, by the proof of, by the POC. So it's time to go into production. It's time to put security, governance, connectivity to internal data, real data, and so on. And so it goes down to IT at that time, and there I would say the problems are starting to arrive. So once again, this is why you have. I would highly suggest you to think how are this ramp up phase possible when you start your proof of concept. So put very early your IT guys into the discussions, and not only stop at the business level and any partners or any companies trying to sell you any good stuff.
I would just, to follow that for a second, I would think the other challenge, again, if I'm an IT leader at a big company, so let's say I started a proof of concept with Dell last summer, and we're talking about generative AI, LLM, stuff like that. Now, 6 months later, a year later, everyone's talking about agentic AI. So if I'd started that proof of concept and I had a scaling plan for that, and now Sébastien comes in and says, well, actually, now you need to think about this. So it feels like even if you have that vision, we're living in such an extraordinary moment where this stuff seems to change week by week. So how do you take that into account? It seems like it's a big challenge to future-proof some of these plans if you scale up one thing and it's really becomes open source or agentic or something else. So
yeah. So once again, there is all those service offering where we have the right person, then the right partnership to help you get the vision. But as you said, things can change in the meantime. What's very important is that you don't waste your money, and typically if you are running some investments, I don't know, buying some technologies or buying some machines to run that this investment can be reused in the future when it makes sense. What we see in large companies, we see multiple proof of concepts running from different ways or different places from the company. And so at the end, it ends on the IT staff. And so if you listen to the business, each one of them wants its own infrastructure and so on. So it would cost hell. And so this is why it makes sense to work with the right person. So would that be Dell Technologies once again or partners? So we can be able to have, let's say, a global vision and not only a single point of business vision, but a global vision of what your needs are, and think globally of what it may look like in the future.
You mentioned earlier too, as part of that vision, the ecosystem you work with. I know NVIDIA, Microsoft are also. I mean, of course, Microsoft has been a historic partner from the beginning for Dell. Now NVIDIA has become important to everyone, it seems like. Why does that matter, and is that something that the enterprise customers also need to look at when they're evaluating not just Dell, but who is your ecosystem you're working with versus another competitor, and who's their ecosystem?
Yeah, so I've mentioned the ecosystem as being one of the 5 parts of the Dell AI strategy. So it's very clear nobody can build its own AI project on its own. So you need to have the right ecosystems with the right companies, and Dell has today the largest ecosystem that you can find on the planet. And so that makes a lot of sense. So of course we are working with all the big names, and we are, let's say, the first provider and the first partner and the first customer of all those big names on technology. Would that be hardware, software, service? But we are also building a strong ecosystem with all those small companies that will give you those small parts or those small additional stuff that you need to build your real AI projects, because having an LLM is okay, but that's not it. And so you need to have multiple small parts. So typically that you can find on Hugging Face typically. So that makes a lot of sense.
We're in France. You're French.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you a little bit about France and the European ecosystem. Obviously, as you know, there's a lot of excitement and concern about what is the place of Europe and France in the global AI market, et cetera, and sovereignty and things like that. But from the perspective of a big global company like Dell that has that big broad view, where does France and Europe fit into that vision? And does it fit in a specific way, or is it just one of many territories, but it's all the same?
So I can't be more proud of being French that at present time. Okay, so you all have seen that the governments have decided to invest, more than 100 billion into AI. But so I have to say we didn't wait for that. So it's a fantastic news, and you can see everybody is excited about this, and we see so many companies either being created at that time or coming from any other countries. Would that be from the Europe? Asia or the US and wants to install new plants in France, which validate this investment from the States. So we make no real difference. So if we can integrate French companies in the global ecosystems for Dell, that makes a lot of sense. So let me give you a few examples. So of course the very last one and the most important is Mistral. So we have announced in Dell Technology World in May timeframe, and that has been re-announced a few weeks ago during Vivatech here in France, the joint agreements together with Mistral. So Mistral will be completely integrated in the Dell AI strategy. Together with Llama. So those are the two major LLM that we will work with by default. So of course we can work with anybody, but Mistral will take this huge positioning, and we are super proud of that. So of course in reverse, Mistral will be 100% running based on Dell technology, and so we are currently building their new data center for that. Huge deal, and we love it. And we are so happy to work together with Mistral. So I mentioned Hugging Face a few minutes ago. So just to remind you that Hugging Face has been created by two French guys. And so, of course, we have a strong relationship with Hugging Face from a company perspective, from a global perspective, but also locally here in France, where we exchange a lot of discussions and technology. And to date, we are the most integrated technology provider inside Hugging Face. Means once you have done your basket, you just can drag and drop your basket onto the Dell logo, and we will build and create for you the technology path that you need to have in order to run what you have just chosen. I like to mention typically in healthcare, so I like to mention Quantum Surgical. So this is a French technology company based in Montpellier in south of France, and they are building AI-guided robots for cancer surgery. And so they are doing many world premieres, and they are used not only in France but all over the world, and they are very well known for that. So here again, a fantastic example. And so of course, we are working with the French tech environment, and we help many French startups to start their environment, and Dell is highly involved into the French environment. So that's a fantastic time to be.
Okay. And I'm a big fan of the south of France, so good for Montpellier.
Yeah.
So more concretely, when we're talking about this notion of sovereignty, which again is, I think, a big topic everywhere, but it's been one in France and Europe for a long time, that can often be kind of a vague term. I think more concretely, often what people are talking about is data governance, security, responsible AI, things like that. So how does that fit into Dell's bigger strategic vision?
Yeah, we are very concerned about the planet at Dell. So I like to say we are a major actor of a major element of an industry who is not good for the planet. But we are conscious about that. So that said, we are doing anything possible to reduce the impact. So of course that's valid for our own operations, but that's also valid for what we put on the market. So that's our scope 3. and that's the major point for us. So yeah, we really encourage our customers to run smaller models. That makes a lot of sense. Once again, smaller model with good data from either the customer or its environment are much more accurate than a big global LLM, and that makes a lot of sense for a planet. So yeah, smaller infrastructure are much better for that. And as I mentioned, so we also move a lot on liquid cooling.
Okay, I think we've got 1 minute left. My boss says 1 more minute. So I'm just going to ask you in 1 minute, what is the tech that is evolving that excites you the most for the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so definitely I mentioned healthcare multiple times already, and so we like to say so Dell's mission statement is create technology to drive human progress, and healthcare is a fantastic example. Any works that are done on DNA, any cancer research are fantastic examples of the meaning of what we say, and so typically what excites me the most is in the near future. Should you have a cancer, you will have a specific treatment created just for you, just to treat your own problem, and that's super exciting. And for me, that's the best example we can find.
Okay, I'll leave you on that optimistic note. Thank you, Sébastien, for joining us.
My pleasure.
And thank you all for being a great audience.
For the speakers, thank you so much. We're gonna make a lunch break.